Dr. Jazz. I've done this talk with so many guys you played with, and from John Hebert to Stephen Crump and to all the other guys, and to so many drummers. I love drummers, and
Oh yeah, me too, man.
So I really want to hear your story a little bit. Also, it's kind of, I've spoken to many guys of your generation or maybe younger, from Nasheed Waits to Gerald and Clarence Penn and all these incredible drummers. And
Sure.
And I'll just jump in. I've listened to your music for such a long time, ever since Artificial Light came out by Steve. I think that was the first time I heard him. I was like,
yeah,
man, who's that? And but I wanted to ask you first to start with about Wandersphere. About the Borderlands Trio, and I listened to this record, and it's incredible how you guys stretch the music and what you do on drums, especially. And how did you approach this record, or in general, playing with this trio, playing improvised tune or composition for 40 minutes? What's your approach there usually?
Well, I think the approach is, definitely one of listening, listening, interaction, conversation, so like everything you do is relating to what the others are doing. But then you can't know what you're going to do until you hear what the others are doing, so then there has to be an element of space as well, Yeah. So with that in mind, then it's just like, kind of letting yourself get into the moment, like really playing from the moment,
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of a way to, another way to kind of amalgamate all your different experiences that you might have and just kind of use it in one expression, so to speak, as opposed to like, okay, now we're playing like this, or now where you can incorporate different things, and that can happen anyway, but when you have like kind of an open palette, sort of like a open canvas to create the picture, and then you're creating with other people. So then it's really like, it's not about you as an individual, but what you can bring to the greater, flow of what's happening,
Yeah. I mean, I always seen you as a team player. Always when I hear you to the records, you contribute so much, whether it's a piano trio or whatever context. But, not many times I hear you like playing the stuff you play in Borderlands Trio, because it's completely improvised. You usually either play like, all kinds of jazz, I'll put it like that. But this is, have you done this like already before? When did you start playing like completely improvised stuff? When was the first time?
I mean, to be honest with you, that's kind of how I started playing. It's very natural for me to play that way, just because I grew up playing that way with Nasheed Waits, who's actually another drummer.
Oh yeah, really?
Abraham Burton, a saxophonist.
Sure.
I mean, that's how I grew up playing, really. So that format for me is like, I'm at home. I'm at home there because you just have the room. You have the room to play. I guess one way to look at it, it's like, you play with different people, and it's like you have to you accommodate yourself to what's happening in a given situation, but then if the situation is accommodating itself to you, then that gives you more room to explore some things that perhaps maybe you wouldn't hear in another situation,
Sure. Yeah.
I know for me, every situation makes me hear and play differently anyway, even though you're the same person. It's like how you apply whatever it is. I get affected by that myself, I don't have the same inclinations in situation A as to situation B or C, or, you know, it's because you're getting different stimulus, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then, so for me, and that's where it's at for me. So then every situation is going to be some different kind of thing, you know? And then you see what you can do within that.
Sure.
And then hopefully if you have several opportunities, you can actually see where that could actually go, you know? But in today's how things go today, that's very rare that you can actually get to see that, you know? Because everything is just so like, all right, one night here, one night there, you know, oh, can we learn this music real quick and then play it? You know, it's like, that's cool too, because you can grow from that. But then if you have time to actually digest what you're playing and actually really connect with the people you're playing with, you know? So as with the Borderlands, you know, now the time is the year, you know, we've done a couple of things now. So so there's a growth that starts to happen, you know, there's a growth that starts to happen, a familiarity, you know, and you start to hear how people do things. So then if you're keying in on that, you know, that's where the growth takes place, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So you could say the Borderlands is a very fertile situation, you know.
It is, man. Yeah, it is. It is definitely. I love it, you know. It's just, I love this flow of, you know, that you can play 40 minutes and it's still like on the 31st minute, it's something, man, how did you arrive here? You know, that's I love that.
I mean, that's like it's more like a journey kind of thing, you know, more so a journey, more so than a demonstration of whatever, you know. I find today a lot of the things, it's more of a demonstration of something, you know, and that's cool too, you know, you know, I could shed something out in whatever and come up with something. I think that's cool too. But I mean, to just be like shooting from the hip, so to speak, you know, I don't know. There's something about that that's like, it's like very real life, you know, it's very just like life as the reality of life and just what that is, capturing that in music, you know? So I'm into that aspect, but I can see how it could be scary, you know, because it's like, oh, you know, especially if you have kind of a preconceived idea of what something is supposed to be, you know. But but
did you have that, like, ever on stage, like this fear when you were younger, or even like, you know, that you're like, oh, what I'm gonna play next, or how did you solve this if you had this? I mean,
I don't believe I ever had it, simply from the fact that, like I told you, I grew up playing this, like I didn't know any better, like, so to speak, you know, like I thought everybody does that, but I guess it's not, you know, I came up playing with another drummer and a horn player. That was the group. Those were the first people that I played with.
How did that happen, by the way, like with Abraham?
Well, I mean, pretty organically, you know, because we grew up together, you know, as kids, you know, so I mean, and then music was just another factor, you know, which then grew into what it's become, you know. But I mean, and just the love for the music. You know, I grew up listening to Nasheed's father, Freddie Waits. You know, that's I used to roadie for him, and you know, we used to go to the clubs together and watch the music, you know, and practice and listen to the records, go to the record store, you know what I mean? So that was that's what it was, you know, that's how we spent our time, you know, so when you come into, like, you know, where we're in this professional world now, you know, you have to apply yourself to different things, you know, so that makes you grow as a musician, you know, that makes you grow. But I'm pretty comfortable. I think I'm pretty comfortable where maybe some people aren't that comfortable, you know, like, because I feel like all the aspects of music are just textures to be used by the individual, you know, and then if you can play with like-minded people, now you can actually start to paint pictures, tell stories, you know, and actually make the music come alive, you know. But it's chemistry, all of that stuff is key in all of that, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and just the whole idea of, you know, like out or in or all of those kinds of things. I don't have any.
It's just names, basically. I mean.
Yeah, you know, because it's like they're
yeah.
all textures to be used. You know, I know working with Andrew Hill solidified that for me personally. You know, that was like a tremendous reaffirmation, and just more seed was planted just to understand that, you know, aspect, you know, and how what music could do, you know.
Yeah.
If you open yourself up to the possibilities, you know.
Yeah. I want to go to Andrew later. I mean, you know, I've played with John Hebert some, and we talked also with John, and, you know, he told me about Andrew, and you three, you know, I know you did timelines. I love the record, but like especially you three also, that you had a really strong connection. But I just wanted to go back to this. You mentioned with Nasheed, you know, you guys went to see, you know, Freddie Waits and I guess other people, of course, but who were like these drummers that you saw as a teenager that kind of blew your mind? The first gigs, you remember those first?
I mean,
gigs
the people, sure. I mean, like I said, Freddie Waits, I grew up watching him. That blew my mind to this day. I'm like, you know, you know, I studied with Michael Carvin, so I would watch him play, you know, and he's a powerful voice, you know, and conceptually, like, you know, on a whole nother level. You know, Max Roach, I got to rub shoulders with Max Roach, you know, Billy Higgins, you know, Billy Higgins, you know, we would see like Elvin Jones play, you know, Tony Williams, you know. I got to play actually one week, it was like a double bill, because that's when I was working with Jackie McLean, and it was like a double bill with Tony Williams. So I was checking my man for like a solid week straight, you know what I mean?
Oh man,
like,
wow, man.
And just having to play and then listen to him, and you know what I mean? So I mean that's where it's at for me, you know?
That's university.
Yeah, you know, you're like in it, you know, it's like, it's that kind of like sink or swim kind of like, you know, in your face kind of like, what are you going to do? Like, what does this mean to you kind of thing, you know? So I take all of that very seriously, you know, and very, that's where it's coming from for me, you know, the culture, man, and the people that built it, you know, learning and understanding what that is, and then being honest with yourself and doing something. I think that's how you move it forward, really.
Definitely.
You know.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Yeah.
But it's a process too. It takes time.
Oh man, sure. Yeah. Oh man.
Nothing's gonna come out tomorrow. Like, oh wow, you know. I mean, there's cool things happening, but this is an evolution. You know, it's a process. So, and you gotta check all the stuff out if you want to actually move it anywhere. You know.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you know, I love that with jazz and music. I mean, life in general, right? It's like.
I mean, it's ultimately it's music. You know, ultimately it's just music. You know, but it's like, okay, what, you know, how involved do you want to get? You know, how deep you want to go?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What are you trying to get to? You know, that's when it becomes subjective. You know, and that's a beautiful thing too, you know.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But that's what artists, I mean, you know, either you like something or you don't. It's a matter of personal taste, which is great, you know, also.
Yeah, and developing that, trying to find what that is, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But I wanted to ask you about Michael. You know, he is still, of course, incredible drummer, and one of the teaching gurus, you know, kind of like Alan Dawson was, I guess, in the
totally.
And like, but how were the lessons with him, and what were like the main things that you kind of remember that, you know, conceptually turned you? Or
man, it was like life, man. You know, it was life lessons. You know, life lessons. I mean, the information and just what was coming, it like exceeded like music. You know, it exceeded like, okay, now we're gonna play page 35 and do this exercise. You know, it was like on a whole nother level, you know, because ultimately, you know, he's trying to help you get to you, you know?
Yeah.
He's not really imposing. Some people, when they teach, it's like they're imposing what they think onto somebody. And then whatever they say is like the end all be all, when you couldn't be farther from the truth, because all anybody can tell you is whatever their particular experience is. Anybody, you know, so understanding that, you know, he's trying to help you get to you, you know. How do you hold the sticks? How's it comfortable for you? You know, now there's certain things from a mechanics standpoint, you know, where you don't want to be straining yourself, and there's certain motor, like, you know, going from the wrist to playing from the, you know, these kinds of things, you know. But other than that, it's like, you know, helping you find you, you know, opening the instrument up, you know, developing that musical understanding and approach to music, you know, because music has obviously a theoretical and technical aspect, but I mean, that's only part of the equation, you know, the music, the cultural side of it, you know. So Michael covered all of that, you know, just how to be professional, what's, you know, this, what you need to know, you know, stuff that you can't learn. You have to spend time with one of those type of people that actually been there to get that kind of information. So I'm forever grateful for that. That was my teacher, you know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Because he wasn't trying to BS you. And if you were BSing, then that's a whole nother story that, you know, only very few can, you know, because there's a method to his madness, you know. So
yeah, exactly.
No holds barred.
Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
No, and fundamentals, you know, common sense, you know, the spirit of the music, you know. It's like, you know, why are you playing what you're playing, you know, these kinds of things. That's huge, you know.
That's a good question always, man. You know, that's why are you playing something exactly?
Yeah, you know, like what is the you know, I don't know how often people think about that, but I know that's like every time I do anything, it's like that's there, you know. So you know, that's a whole nother thing that if you want to go down that road, you know, it's a little more involved.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I mean, but did Michael then lead you to Jackie? I mean, like, how did that connection with Jackie then happen? You mentioned Jackie, of course. I mean, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was definitely one of the main connections to ultimately connecting with Jackie, because he worked with Jackie McLean.
Yeah, sure.
And he recorded one of the greatest records of all time.
New York Calling, right?
No, man, Antiquity.
Oh man, which I have New York Calling only. Oh shit, I have to check.
No, that's a great one too. That was one of my first quote unquote jazz records. Yeah. Those were one of my first jazz records, you know, because I was listening to the people who I was around, you know. So New York Calling, I grew up on that record, wore the grooves out. But Antiquity is just a duo with Michael Carvin and Jackie McLean.
Oh man, I have to check this one out. Shit, I don't know. Okay, fine.
That was the first record I ever heard, quote unquote jazz record, you know. So to answer your question too, when you listen to that record, you know, that's just two dudes and they sound like an orchestra.
Sure.
You know, I mean, sure. The adventure that they take you on that record, you got to check that one. I think you're gonna enjoy that, man. That's a prime example. You know, that's one of my favorite recordings of Michael Carvin, you know, and just one of my favorite recordings of all time, really.
Man, I have to check this one out. I don't have this one. Okay.
So, you know, between that and then the Boom, are you familiar with Boom?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what I grew up on, that, you know, and as far as like when I started exploring the music and you know, that's also some amazing music, you know, where percussion can just make that kind of,
yeah, sure, man,
you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So conceptually, I'm very much coming from there, you know, all of those things, you know, all of those people, and there's others, you know, Richard Davis, the bass player.
Oh, sure, yeah, man, sure. Great.
You know, these are the people that we came up around and were listening to, you know. So it's like really trying to aspire to what we saw and continue that, you know, represent that dynamic, you know, because for me that was, you know, heavy, you know.
Oh, sure.
It's why I play.
Definitely,
you know?
yeah. I mean, how was the first gig with Jackie like? You remember that, or the first rehearsal? You remember
totally,
the
man.
moment?
Surreal. It was surreal. Because first hit I played with him, it was in Japan.
Oh wow, really? Oh man.
Yeah, and it was so surreal, man. I drank in Japan. They had these beers called Sapporo, and these huge, super huge can. I drank 2 of those before the hit to like you know, like, because it was surreal, man. It was like I was dreaming, you know, because I grew up listening to these records and stuff, and now they're making the announcement at the club, you know, Jackie McLean Quintet, and calling out the names. I'm like, whoa, it's like this shit is happening, you know. It's like this shit is happening right now, you know. Like I said, sink or swim. And with them dudes, if it wasn't flowing a certain way, if it wasn't right, it was like immediate. It was getting addressed, you know. So like, and if you wasn't cutting it, you weren't there. You know what I mean? So like that kind of pressure was which is good. That's how you grow.
Yeah, sure.
You know. So yeah. I mean, just looking back on it, I'm grateful for that experience, you know, because I mean, I learned so much.
How old were you for that Japan time?
Well, I was like 20.
Oh man, wow, yeah.
Yeah, I was 20 when I started playing with him, you know, like 19, 20, you know. So
yeah, and then Rhythm of the Earth happened basically immediately.
Yeah, Rhythm of the Earth was like 92. I might have been like 20, 21 or something on that one, you know. Actually, I just saw it. YouTube is crazy. I just saw somebody put up like some Jackie McLean hit from like 1994, 92 or something from this hit, you know, in Virginia. I was like, wow, where did this come from? I probably have it because I recorded a lot of stuff that we did.
Oh man!
You know?
Oh wow!
I got archives of things. But it's crazy just listening back, you know, because I mean, now that's like 30 years ago. Exactly. It blows my mind. It's like, whoa, like what happened? Like where'd the time go? But I'm glad that I put the time in with those kind of people, because that's what means everything to me. And they're gone now.
Yeah.
It can't be done.
Yeah.
You like if you didn't get an opportunity to see what that is, you know. So I know that's definitely Jackie McLean, Andrew Hill. Those people connect. Those people played with Charlie Parker. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even need to say anymore. And by saying that, Charlie Parker and all of the people that were, and everything that happened from then, before then, and after then, they was there. Yeah. You know? And played with all of the people that did anything that we listened to. So it's like, you know, so I'm extremely grateful, you know, because that's now a unique perspective, you know. Definitely. In today's climate, you know, it's not a lot of stuff is necessarily coming from that place, you know.
Yeah. And it's history already, you know, like you said, it's 30 years ago. Although when you say
it's like history.
92, you know, if you say 92 to me, it's like kind of still feels like yesterday.
Totally.
But it's like 30 years ago, man. It's like crazy, right?
You know, a lot has transpired, a lot has gone down, and you know, but it's like, wow. So now it's all of a sudden it's history, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
All of a sudden, you know, it's like that's why I like being in the moment, you know?
Yeah.
Because then it's like you're always in that mode, you know?
Yeah, searching
and I can talk about those experiences in this way, you know? Like, I'm grateful for it because it enabled me to do whatever I'm gonna do now, you know?
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned Andrew also. You know, I have to ask you about Andrew. He's, you know, I've spoken, you know, with so many guys who played with Andrew, like with Greg Doherty and Ron Horton, and I played with John, and you know, he's Andrew for me one of the most underrated blue note players, composers, and pianists ever. And you got to spend quite a lot of time with him. And how I mean, I will not even ask you what you learned because it's a stupid question, but like, how was this first connection with you and with him? And musically, how did you evolve musically? Because he was so open in a way, you know. And
well, actually, how I even had the opportunity to play with him was because Nasheed was actually playing with him.
Yeah.
And actually how Nasheed met him was that Nasheed covered for me on a hit with Jackie McLean.
Oh, really? Oh, wow, man. Okay.
So he did some of the hit with Jackie McLean as well. And he covered for me on a hit. And at this particular hit, Andrew Hill was at this hit. And he met Andrew Hill and then started working with Andrew Hill.
Oh, okay.
You know, pretty much soon after that, right? And which is interesting because which is interesting to me because that's kind of what Jackie McLean is known for, you know, like keying in on good drummers, like, you know. And he has and if you just check out his history in the track record and the dudes that he plays with,
oh man,
you know, some contemporaries or you know, obviously he played with the Messengers, with Blakey, you know, he has that Mingus, you know what I mean? It's like learn from Bud and Monk, you know, going to that, you know what I mean? That's like a whole nother level of just that's and then the people that he brought into the fold. Well, he did a lot of playing with Billy Higgins.
Yeah.
Art Taylor, he grew up with Art Taylor, you know, brought Tony Williams into the fold, you know, brought Jack DeJohnette into the fold.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all these heavyweight dudes. And then if you check it out a step further, that's where Miles Davis got them dudes. Because he would check out who Jackie McLean had, and then he would swoop in on them. You know? So so you know, there's that whole thing. You know, so Andrew came down to the hit because I think this is when he was starting to become active again and do some more things, you know. And Sheet was playing with Jackie McLean and he keyed in on that, you know. I'm pretty sure that's what, you know, because I don't even know of any recordings with Jackie McLean and Andrew Hill together playing.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think so. I mean, not to my recollection,
You know, they might have, I'm sure they've crossed paths or something, but like you know,
official kind of,
But like if you check out who's playing with Jackie McLean, then it's like, you know, you kind of and they're contemporaries. You know what I mean? They was both born in 1931.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So anyway, so Nasheed was playing with them, but then Nasheed had some things he was doing. So then I covered for him playing with Andrew. And I did one hit with him up in it was Buffalo, the Albright Knox Gallery. And I remember it was a hit. And I remember looking at John like, you know, like what's the next tune? Like, you know, because always when I first come into a situation, I'm trying to see what's happening first before I start like trying to do whatever, you know. So, and John was just like, yeah, man, just, you know, make it happen.
Is that the first time you played with John? Like on that?
No, I had played with John.
before. Oh,
like
okay.
before in other situations, you know, but that was the first, that's the first, one of the first like group situations.
Yeah.
That was just the first hit. And then not long after that, Andrew made a change, and then I played with him and John. I played, it was him and John, Greg Tardy, and Charles Tolliver.
Yeah, I love that.
And then
love that band, man.
And Charles Tolliver, which is interesting, is that's another person that Jackie McLean brought into the fold.
Exactly.
You know, he brought in, he was almost like a you know, certain musicians, they because what because Jack McLean was a good teacher. He could shape and mold people in that way, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, Blakey, another person like that, you know, Miles Davis, another person like that, you know, certain people where they're almost become like institutions just because people go there and they grow as musicians and go on
become something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know, and Jackie McLean has like a huge track record of that. You know, I could go to, I mean,
yeah, especially drummers, man. That's like you said,
drummers,
you know, like incredible.
You know, all, you know, drummers, piano players, Larry Willis,
Willis, yeah, sure. Yeah.
You know, Larry Willis, you know, Nat Reeves.
Yep.
Then you got all the horn players, a lot who are out here today playing, like Abraham Burton and Jimmy Green and Wayne and Scott-Free and these guys.
Yeah.
I think Sue Terry, Antoine Roney, you know, a lot of people that you know, he touched, you know. I'm not even naming a fraction, you know.
No, definitely.
Like,
yeah. It's,
I mean, the influence, it's so heavy that the influence to this day is still, you know, because now, Steve Davis, trombone player, Alan Palmer, pianist, because now all the people that he taught are teaching people that are out here, you know what I mean? So it's like a serious, like, dynasty. And he has his record, and his record is called Dynasty, you know, and that's kind of like what I'm seeing. I'm like, wow, because there'll be a student, like there's this young student now who studied with Abraham. She plays alto. Jackie McLean is already gone, but if you hear her play, it's like, whoa, you know, it's like,
oh, wow,
it's like, wow, you know, it's like she has a heavy just inclination, and she has that spirit, you know, and it's like, man, how did that happen? You know, he's not even around. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, when you mentioned, like, you asked John, what's happening next, right? How did your connection with John happen? Like, I mean, I know, you know, later with Fred also Hersch, but like, you guys seem
well, that actually was an extension of after this situation, and that Fred Hersch is also Nasheed played with Fred, and I started playing with Fred because Nasheed had to do something else, and I covered for him there.
Oh man, okay.
Yeah, that's how I started to play with Fred too. So, and then what the rapport I developed with John playing with Andrew, like, flowed over into that situation playing with Fred, which then created what that situation was. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I love the trio. I saw you guys in Porgy and Bess in Vienna, like 2000 something, like years ago, with Fred.
You know, and then that developed a thing. You know what I mean? And then that developed a thing. And I think the thing is, you know, John is an adventurous musician, you know, and he's aware of a lot of different music and textures, so that you could do anything, you know, or he'll put something out there, you know. He's gonna engage the music and make something happen, which is like, that's right up my alley, you know, because now something's gonna happen, you know, when everybody's engaged a certain kind of way, you know.
Yeah.
There's no autopilot playing with John, you know.
Sure.
No autopilot.
Yeah. Did you guys ever talk about what you know? I mean, you as a rhythm section, that's like incredible, right? Did you guys ever talk about you playing together the rhythm section, what you do or how you do something, or never?
Not one word.
Music. Oh man, wow.
No.
Okay.
I remember we played this concert with Andrew. It was actually the first time I played a just trio with him and Andrew and John. And we did one set was trio, and then one set was Passing Ships, which was a recording that Andrew had, which was like a non-net. And I remember when we was rehearsing with the non-net, we're playing, and I was trying to cater to the larger ensemble, to the horns, And the one thing that Andrew said, he came over to me, he's like, they'll be okay. You just do, you play whatever you're gonna play. Like, let them worry about themselves, kind of thing. Because he saw me trying to but that's not, that's not what he wanted. They had to figure that out. So he wanted you to engage and and bring that creativity to the forefront. There is no instruction, and it's interesting because I've heard some people can't mess with that, and they need to know what's happening. I've heard people that have played with Andrew, different people that have played with Andrew, like in arguments, in arguments, like I didn't know who was coming next and all this kind of stuff, or he'll start in one thing and go into something else, but I'm cool. For me, I'm totally comfortable with that, because that's like, now I feel like I'm playing, like it's like I'm really, now it's happening,
Yeah. No, it's so beautiful to hear the trio with Andrew and then trio with Fred. I mean, John, because it's like this. I mean, both incredible. Yeah. But it's just like, two worlds completely different, and both sound incredible.
And that's what I like, to go back to what we were talking about before, as far as like being able to see what that situation is and see how that can grow, so exactly. Playing with Fred, that had an opportunity to grow over 10 years or so, the Andrew situation, not so much time, but just because of the nature of everybody, and we were able to plug into where he already was, so that was able to create a nice thing, and I was able to learn a whole lot from it, and learn a lot playing with Fred and John too, because that's a whole nother like literal dynamic, it's like, it's like, can you still play and do things and make things happen without playing at upper dynamic levels, because if I were to do that, then you wouldn't really hear what the essence of that situation is,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the drums just have that power, the drums, if you play them a certain way, you're not gonna hear anything.
Sure. Yeah.
Unless you got a big rack system behind you,
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, especially with Fred. I mean,
Yeah. So for me, that was the challenge in that situation. Like still play, but like be within where that dynamic range was.
Still create intensity with that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's so I learned a lot in that situation. Had to develop things or things you might have already done, but if you're in a situation where you really have to like utilize this, then it's just gonna develop it,
Yeah, definitely.
So
interesting. Yeah, I mean, what did you, in terms of band leading, if you look at Andrew and Fred, let's say, and Jackie, how were these guys? I mean, Fred still is. I mean, as band leaders, your experience as a supporter, I mean, team player, like, how were these people?
But Jackie McLean was definitely more like old school, like old school. That was like, and I was a lot younger too when I was playing with him, so it's a different dynamic. Yeah. And we were his students, we were his students, you know, we're learning. So it was like, it was old school, man. You know, it's like if there's a time you had to be there, if you wasn't there 15 minutes early, you were late, you know? And,
Oh man.
you know, like, you know, if you wasn't on top of stuff, like I said, there was no, it was like they was on you, you know, it wasn't fun and games, like, you know, it wasn't fun and games. It was like serious business, you know? But that's what it had to be. And also that's where he came from. That
Exactly.
element, you know,
60s and yeah, sure. Playing.
you know, Andrew was, I mean, that was like wide open in a way, you know. Like he was old school, but like it was more realistic to where we are today, right? So like the dynamic of groups today is different than it was even 30 years ago.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
where like if you played with a group, like you played with that group, your time was pretty much all consumed playing with that group. You didn't really have so much time to be playing with this group and that group and that group and that group. Whereas today it's like it's all
everywhere.
over the place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like what is a group really today? You know, it's like you just like change the name and like, you know, and it's like so it's a different, it means something different today, you know?
Yeah.
And if you have a real group, then that's a certain dynamic that you have, you know? Yeah. It's like, so for example, with Jackie McLean, like if you're playing with him, right? I remember this, we were at a festival in Japan, right? And we're playing the festival. And then also on the bill at the festival was this trumpet player, Terumasa Hino.
Yeah, sure.
Trumpet player who actually Jackie McLean brought into the fold.
Yeah, Michael Carvin played with him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and Michael Carvin,
sure.
because they met playing with Jackie McLean.
Sure.
Right. So, but now, you know, this is later, you know, Terumasa Hino is like say he's like Miles Davis in Japan.
In Japan,
you know what I mean? He's like that kind of a figure. So I remember we're playing in one group, his group plays, and then somebody that was in the group that I was playing in with Jackie McLean went and sat in on a tune with Terumasa Hino. Jackie McLean didn't like that. You know, like the guy went out, the crowd was like, woo, you know, and then he went and played with the other guy. Man, he didn't like that. And it was funny because I was there, I saw him, and I could kind of see where he was coming from. And he even asked me, he was like, you know, he asked me, he said, you think that's out that I got mad that happened, you know, like he was thinking about it. And I was like, no, I can see why you would get upset at that, because it takes the energy out of, you know, there's some truth to that stuff, man. It's like it takes the energy out of your group, and now it's like all open. Sometimes you can get that. That can happen. Like if you have a group playing and you start letting a whole bunch of people sit in, then that changes the whole energy. You know, some people are more sensitive to that than others. You know, because then all of a sudden it's a jam session, which is a thing. But if you're playing in a group setting, then that's what that is. You know. Yeah. And some people are real, like, more sensitive on that. Not so much these days, but definitely the further back the clock you turn, then that's like, you don't jump around and do all of that. The only time you saw people playing a lot was on recordings where you saw like the different combinations of people, you know, you have like the Wayne Shorter record with Ron Carter and Elvin Jones, you know, and this kind of stuff. But they wasn't, you played with like pretty much one group at a time, pretty much, you know.
Interesting, yeah.
But it was a different scene. It was a whole different landscape then, you know. And so now it's very different. Now it's very rare that you'll play somewhere for like a week.
Oh, it's gone, man. You in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, there's anymore. You know, there's you know, one or two places in New York. You know, I mean, so that changes everything. You know, one night here, if you're lucky, 2 nights, you know, and then like it could be like a week, and you could literally play a different gig every night of the week with different musicians, different set of music. I mean, that could happen.
Yeah,
and that's
crazy.
That's interesting, but it's like, for me, you can't really get to anything, really, you know? Not really. I mean, it'll be cool, and there is an element of fun to it, because it's like, okay, now how, you know, what can I, but ultimately you want to be able to actually get into something and actually, you know, and for me, that takes time.
Sure.
You know, I don't really have like an instant concept, you know. It's that, like, I don't know what I'm gonna play, like, worked out in such a way already. You know, I have to see how whatever I'm gonna play, how I'm gonna do that, and that takes a second, you know.
Interesting.
It takes a second.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, well, it makes completely sense. But what, you know, when I speak to I spoke to Joe Chambers, or like, I don't know, Hal Galper, all these guys who are like over 80 now or 75. And when they tell you that, you know, they played in San Francisco for, I don't know, a couple of weeks, not nights even.
Or even you could even be somewhere for like a month, you know, and be like
exactly.
at some place and just be playing, you know.
Developing the music and everything is just
that's where the music comes from.
Yeah.
That's how the music grows. It doesn't grow because you have a good publicist, you know. It's like
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like those are the factors that grow the music. So, you know, but we're in a whole nother kind of mentality today, you know.
Yeah,
and
sure.
so that's why, for me, while I understand that, I'm like, but I know where I come from and what I'm trying to get to. So it's like, even with a different thing happening, it's like I still want to have like the actual thing happen, you know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
You know, and see where that could go.
Yeah, definitely. You know? But I wanted to ask you also this. You know, you've done so much work with Andrew, and I mean with everyone we mentioned now. But like, I wanted to ask you about Continuum, and you being a band leader. How did that story begin? I mean, I know you did, like, you know, kind of co-led bands with Abraham, but how did the story of you becoming a band leader, and how do you see yourself as a band leader now? How is this progression?
Well, to me, I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm more just like a voice in the music, you know. Like I feel like once you go into that, it confines you into a box, sort of, you know, because I don't feel that anybody really is leading anybody like that.
It's a collective sport, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah.
Like so when I played with Jackie McLean, that I was apprenticing, you know, with him, you know. I get the whole marketing and everything, but there's not one group where whoever the leader is, 9 times out of 10 is the dudes in the group that actually making the music what it is. You know, so I'm very much on like making sure that everybody who's contributing to the situation is recognized on that plane. You know, I'm a strong proponent for that. You know, because far too often it's always like the leader of the group is responsible for what somebody else is doing, and my whole thing is like, well, let's take Tony Williams out of Miles Davis' group.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, is any of that music happening like that?
Sure.
But like, namely Tony Williams, though.
Yeah.
Because I got some recordings with that group with Richard Davis playing bass instead of Ron Carter, and it's not that it doesn't.
Oh man, really? Oh wow, shit. Yeah.
I mean, like the shit is still like, you know what I mean? You take Tony Williams out of that group just because of how and the nature of the drums and what the drums bring to the music.
Yeah.
None of that is happening. None of it.
Yeah.
You know, definitely. I'm not saying that I'm obviously, because Miles Davis did records and
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Without Tony Williams, obviously, right? But like that's like it's everybody, obviously, but it's like Tony Williams don't get the credit for what or none of those guys really gets the credit for what they actually did for the music, you know, because it all goes under the Miles Davis umbrella. You know,
well, we know. I mean, you know, yeah, we kind of. I mean, but I know what you mean. The general public, they see Miles Davis Quintet or whatever, and yeah.
And then it's like, who doesn't matter who's in the group, you know,
Exactly,
when actually it very much matters who's in the group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I'm not like in a, you know, it's like, for me, it's like you're a part of something. Now, yeah, if somebody's like, oh, yo, we want you to do this date, then yeah, I'm gonna pick the guys that I have a rapport with.
Yeah.
And you know, and we'll do the hit. So I don't have a problem with being the, you know, like,
yeah,
I've done that before and that's fine. But like, that's not the focus for me. Like, you know, because I don't believe anybody has ownership over the music or another musician, you know, like my drummer and you know, those kinds of terms, my piano player.
Sure, yeah, that's bad, yeah.
And especially in today's climate, like I said, like a real group, you just know it when you hear it, because there's a rapport and it's just moving a certain kind of way. And there's a certain interaction that's happening.
Yeah.
You know, so
exactly.
So from that perspective, I know who those guys are. For me, you know, so like whether my name is the headliner or not really does, like, really, that's like playing with Abraham. It's like we grew up playing. That wasn't the focus. It wasn't until we got into, like, you know, labels wanting to do certain things, and then that's what created that. And so that's just how it's perceived, you know. But you know, for me, it's just like a journey of a thing. But I understand like the whole promotional aspect of it, you know. But I feel like I'd rather be, if I'm gonna be a leader, I'd just rather be a leading voice in the music, period.
Yeah.
You know, so then it's like whatever you do, you're bringing that to whatever you do.
Yeah, but still, you know, as a leader, you wrote, like, I don't know, Cause and Effect, I think it's yours, and Misako. Yeah. Beautiful music you wrote, and still being a band leader gives you this chance to write.
Well, yeah, and it's sure. But like, so for example, playing with the Borderlands people gives me that space, but it's not the Eric McPherson trio, you know. Sure. So so that tends to be, it hasn't been something that I focused on in such a way, but I do understand that I do need to supplement some of that angle just to be able to like survive in the, you know, to have the name circulating in a certain way and all of that, you know. I realize that, but only for that reason, just to perpetuate, really. But it's like, if I play in a group, man, it's like whoever's playing with me is equally part of what's happening, unless it's somebody that's obviously, I mean, everybody's bringing something, but like we'll play with younger musicians, but then they're learning, just like how I was learning playing with Jackie McLean.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I mean, that is what it is, you know? And but yeah, and then, you know, different people kind of go take that to different levels, you know. Some people like really get into it and believe it, and like they're the leader, and like, you know, you're like some property of them or something, you know. I don't really.
I know what you mean. I will not.
Hey, man, it's a big universe. So if that's your angle, you know, probably I don't really find myself in them kind of situations where, you know, where that's the dynamic too tough, you know, because if it's somebody's group, I'm not, you know, then it's like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, that's my mentality coming in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, I'm just there to like, all right, what's your thing? And then you do that. Then I go home and live my life. You know, it's like, you know, so I'm not even on that trip.
Exactly.
But I get it. I get it though. I get it. You know.
But do you still write music? I mean, like now, like let's say, or in the last few years, or
that's something that I'm actually starting to get more into now as we speak.
Oh, beautiful, man.
I've had ideas and different things I've sketched out over the years, But it hasn't been a focus of mine just because I'm more focusing on just developing how I want to deal with the instrument, you know, like that's been my focus. It still is. But now I have a different mentality towards the compositional component just because, you know, if you have an idea and you can articulate it and put it out in such a way, then it's easier to get that to other people. And then you can also basically tailor make certain vehicles and ideas to exactly what you want to play, you know, and it's not like you're having to adapt yourself to what somebody else wants to do. You can tap into your full thing. And I guess another reason why, from just how we came up playing, you know, we would just play in and we would just like evolve tunes that we played, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then Abraham would have tunes and stuff. So it was just like, you know, or if I had an idea, I threw it in there, you know, but it was like, it was just happening, you know. It wasn't like, that wasn't even a necessary focus for me because there was no shortage of like
music,
material and ideas and things we wanted to do. And a lot of the stuff was coming from an improvisational aspect anyway, you know.
Yeah,
but
just said,
but that being said, you know, I'm definitely recently like getting more focused and serious into it, and to see where that's, I feel like I could do that now too, because I have a better idea of what music means to me, you know. So now I know what the theory and all that stuff is going to mean to me now too. Where now I'm more just learning it so I can adapt it to where I'm at, not so much trying to figure out what this guy did or that guy did. And you know, and how they teach stuff in school, you know, where I think kind of the way they teach things in school could kind of stunt somebody's growth in terms of, I mean, actually, to be honest with you, the meaning of music has been changed because it's in school now.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I went to school, so I know what the mentality is. And
I know what you mean.
And I went to school, but I also learned outside of school, and I see that there's two different worlds that are kind of coexisting. And a lot of students that are in schools today are so far removed from the cultural dynamic, you know, where the music kind of has become an exercise. You know, it's like learn these patterns, learn this. It's like
7 over 5 over whatever.
So it's like, all right, you can play all this stuff, but it's like, can you just play a blues or some kind of simple? Like, can you just play a tune or whatever it is where you just know the role and what you're supposed to do for that situation, and it's not about playing anything but just whatever the time and flow is for a song? Can you just play a melody?
Funny, man. Kenny Washington said the same thing. You know, he's in this more straight ahead genre, but he said exactly the same thing.
Yeah, you know, it's like it's the fundamentals, you know, like, you know, music is vibration, you know, melody, song, melody, rhythm, you know, but now, you know, it could just be, we're like in the technological age now. So now music has become an exercise.
Exactly.
Even for drums, what is most popular for drums right now is the dudes who sound most like an MP3 machine. You know, which is cool. Like, I think it's slick. I think Cass is doing some bad stuff, but like for me, I'm like, that's not really the sound that I'm going for. You know, that's definitely an approach. But I'm not really trying to sound more like a computer. You know, and I'm actually trying to sound more like nature. You know, what's the vibration of the universe? You know, like what's the rhythm of the waves coming in? Like, I'm more there than trying to sound like ones and zeros.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and that's actually what gets, you know, that's kind of gets, and I have nothing against, you know, because you know, using different electronic components and things. I'm totally open to all of it, but
no, but I know what you mean exactly. I mean,
You know, it should be recognized as it's a different dynamic. It's not really the human element, and it's not the storytelling, conversational dynamic part of the music, which is kind of getting ignored. Like, I'm like, you know, because all this, it's like, oh, this is the new thing. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but that's not even touching on any of the principles that are over here. It's like a different thing. So yeah, it is a different thing, but it's like not this, you know. And so yeah, so it's just interesting. And so now in schools, you know, you got your Berkeleys, you got your new schools in these places where it's like they're just like, you know, the students are up in there getting bombarded with like this and like, you know, who's on the cover of this and all that kind of stuff. And that's tricky, you know, because a lot of that stuff is kind of fad based, you know. It's like, it's flavor of the month, you know. It's like, okay.
Especially now, with kids, it's a problem because you know, they hear
they're more like, I mean, anybody can be gullible, but like they're more gullible, you know. Oh, really? And then they just believe it, you know. So you know, and again, like whatever you want to like, and you know, but it's like, you know,
but go back. That's important to go back.
Man,
you know,
then you could, because then you could actually see what you're listening to, because it's been done before. You know, let's just see where the stuff comes from. You know, you know, it's like everything is connected. So there's this like, oh, this came out of nowhere. Like, you know, it's like, well, now actually, if you do the research, this is coming from this, and this is coming from this. And what's interesting now is they got a title. So, like, you've heard of gospel chops, and it's definitely a sound involved with that in a certain right. But like, if you really break it down, what's really happening? Like, let me ask you, what's the biggest difference between gospel chops and what Benny Callier played, or what Dennis Chambers played, or what Buddy Rich played, for even that matter, you know? Now remove the just from a drum like demonstration standpoint, you know, it's like Buddy Rich well, he's not, because you have dudes like Chick Webb, who he was checking out. And Chick Webb, and Chick Webb was like a battle drummer. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like that was their thing. It's like, you know, so in the double bass drums and all of this stuff, it's not new stuff. They was doing this stuff back in the 20s, you know. Have you ever seen a Chick Webb setup?
No,
it's like a rack system.
Really?
He's got a rack system. It's a rack system. It's got cymbals hanging over it. It's got tempo blocks, timpanis, gong. You know, it's got the whole thing that, like, if you see a picture of that today, it's attributed to like a specific, you know. But my thing is like, man, this stuff is wide open. You know, and but because they're like trying to market stuff to people and stuff, you know, and then they start boxing everything in and describing things randomly, you know, to sell stuff. And I get it. So I guess I'm just saying that we need to just have some more alternative options so that people could actually get to the actual information, so that they can come to their own thing, you know, truthfully, not just blindly following, you know, who's got the most backing, you know.
But that's what you had with Michael. You said Carvin, he's helped you find your own voice. Many times now it's like, you know, with guitarists, I don't know, you hear guitarists who come out of a certain school and I don't know, 90% of them sound like, I don't know, Kurt Rosenwinkel or, you know, whatever.
That's exactly
which is it's not bad, you know. They technically are amazing, but it's not an individual sound, you know. It's not like,
you know, but it's like, but my thing is like, how was Kurt Rosenwinkel able to get to a point where you could recognize it's him? And why wouldn't you want to do the same for yourself?
Yeah.
You know, I know Kurt. I played with Kurt too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I love it,
those guys.
It's just a critique of the younger people that, you know, do research, go back. Check,
it's like,
you know, everyone.
Check it all out so that you can see.
I agree completely.
I mean, and this is just for the individual. Obviously, it's just going to give you a better chance to actually have people be able to identify you as a musician, you know, because
Exactly.
it's like, but for some reason, the thing to do today is to be like, regurgitate, you know, something that you saw somebody else do on YouTube. It's like, yeah, if I got a Kris Dave thing and I can look at it and break it down and slow it down and then shed it for a year and then, yeah, okay, I could do that too. And then put it on YouTube. Oh, look, I can play this. It's like, yeah, but are you playing that real time? Like,
exactly.
You know, that's not you. It's not you or whoever the cat is. You know, I did a
exactly.
I was doing a drum workshop. I asked everybody to play, and everybody played. And I was like, okay, I know who your favorite guy is, who your favorite guy is, who your favorite guy is. And it was like, which is cool because you want to go. I mean, I still listen to all these people today to get information, you know, but it's kind of like, once you get the information, what are you going to do with it? You know, like there's another step that you want to take to take in the idea and then to be able to reprocess it and then have it be a personal understanding, you know, but that just takes a little more work than just like getting the mechanics on the surface. You know?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, we'll see. That there's always like, you know, 1 in every 1,000 then pops up and it's like, man, that's the guy. Okay, you know.
But the number is getting smaller and smaller because no, it's and this is a process that didn't just start. It's been happening, but it's getting smaller and smaller because where you can get the information is getting less and less. That's why I say I feel extremely lucky that I just caught those guys.
The last train, in a way. Yeah.
I just caught these guys, you know, or somebody like my man Abraham Burton, who got to play with Art Taylor. That was like an institution playing with Art Taylor, you know, and Roy Haynes and these people and Lewis Hayes, you know. That's like, yeah, you get stuff, you know.
Firsthand, learning.
Yeah, you know, it's a whole nother level.
Exactly.
A whole other connection to it, you know. Or my man Mark Carey, you know, who played with Betty Carter,
Betty,
and Abby Lincoln and Art Taylor, you know, played with the vocalists, you know. That's like a whole nother, a whole nother thing that's like that you got to learn, you know. Where so when you come in today, there is no more Betty Carter, and Abby Lincoln. You know what I'm saying? There's no more ATs. There's no more Jackie McLeans. Where you're gonna get a certain thing, you know. And so now, as time goes, I'm not saying it's all gone, but where you can get it, and then even being of the mind to be like, oh, this is where I need to go, you know. Like that's how we were. Like, oh man, this is where we need to go. So we made sure that we was, because everybody wasn't checking these guys out. You could have, but actually at that time, when I was checking out Freddie Waits, everybody else was checking out Dave Weckl.
Yeah, exactly.
Cal Uta. I noticed because I went to school with the guys. Like, I went to school with my man. You heard this drummer Zach Danziger?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. So we went to elementary school together. And really? We all went to school together.
Not really. Oh man.
Years ago. But then I remember when I first started studying with Michael Carpin, he used to teach at this place, the Drummers Collective, on 14th Street. And then that's was, and Zach also studied at that Drummers Collective with Kim Plainfield, another guy.
Yeah.
Him and this other guy, Toby Ralph, this other drummer. And we was all in music and art together at the same time and always jamming with each other and stuff. And like Toby was like coming out of Vinnie Colaiuta, and Zach was coming out of like Weckl and Gadd at that period, you know. I remember the bass player, my man, the bass player was super into Jocko, like Chick Corea Electric Band. Like that's what was being, you know, that's where the focus was. And you know, the whole fusion, quote unquote, which by the way, Tony Williams never gets no credit for really being the one.
Oh man, sure, lifetime. Come on, yeah. It's
Lifetime. You heard this record, Emergency?
yeah, of course. Sure.
You know what I mean? It's like that's fusion before it was fusion.
Fusion,
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
sure.
And it was Tony that brought those elements to the Miles Davis situation.
Yeah.
And then Miles, obviously being the smart fellow that he is, you know, played the jam band game. You know, he played the jam band game and, you know, created
What happened,
you know,
yeah.
put on the right outfit and
exactly.
you know, it's very interesting, man.
It's very interesting. If you look at this stuff, I love that.
Yeah, but once you start like peeling the onion and like going in, man, it's like it's deep, you know.
Yeah. That's why I love doing these talks, you know, because it's like, you know, I you know, I'm a musician and I play and everything, but this is for me the jazz, you know, like hearing these stories and hearing, you know, where you come from or where whoever comes from, because, you know, I don't know, I feel that's so important, at least to me, you know, when I listen to this.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the people that you're naming that you're talking to are like all the people that are out here doing it now, you know,
exactly,
on a certain level and have a certain understanding. So that's huge, man. That's a great thing that you're doing, you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully people are keying in because that's where you're gonna get like good information, you know, just to move with, you know, because there's a lot of random stuff, you know, with this internet, as great as it is, at the same time it's like,
man,
come one, come all, and everybody's, you know, everybody is like on a soapbox, you know, trying to sell miracle medicine, you know.
Exactly. It's true, man. Yeah, it's true.
And it's like, wow, you know, like luckily, you know, because I have the perspective, I can cut through it and see and get to whatever might be viable or not. But man, there's so much, like almost, there's so much stuff that's actually just misinformation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
it's too much information.
Too much and wrong a lot of times, you know, and it's like, or somebody's like what they think it is or something, you know, which if they made that statement in the beginning, then okay, cool. But like if you're like, this is the such and such, and then you go into this whole thing, it's like, man, wow, you know. And then when you see how many people are actually tuning in on it and putting comments and stuff, and I'm like, whoa, man, it's heavy out here. Like it's like the blind leading the blind, and it's like, you know,
we have to go back. I mean, but students come to me like, you know, they're like, I want to play like Rosenwinkel or like Mike Moreno or whoever. We go back, man. We go to Oscar Moore and, you know, Charlie Kristen and those guys. Well, first, you know, play those lines, man. And
totally, man. Get an understanding of where it's coming from.
Yeah, then you can do the sick 5/4 stuff and triads or whatever, but you know, go back and that's important.
And you could tell me, but I heard like Kurt it actually kind of has some coming out of Matheny a bit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, you know,
and Matheny comes from Jim Hall, you know, and Jim Hall comes from, you know, and it's
you know what I'm saying? Like connect the dots, exactly. You know. But then if you can connect the dot, you might be able to find your voice and you know,
exactly
a way to go about it where it's like, oh yeah, that's my man right there, you know. I don't know, but I guess that's a subjective focus, you know?
Man, sure.
I mean, I thought that was the focus. That's what I always thought, but I'm coming to find out that, you know, that's not necessarily the case.
It's different. I mean, but you know, that's why, you know, you sound how you sound and you do what you do, so which is beautiful, you know. That's perfect. So, but cool, Eric, man. Thanks, you know, thanks for taking the time and sharing some of these thoughts. I really appreciate it. So,
no, my pleasure. Nice catching up with you, you know, and definitely
hope to catch you somewhere on the road or get to play one day, you know. That's what
man, looking forward to it. It's bound to happen.
Dr. Jazz.